looking at the Tennessee game, I think that the first person you have to look at is Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect has 39 against Auburn. I mentioned him earlier. He's in the running for the SEC Player of the Year. He has been scoring at another level and is probably going to be the top college player taken in the NBA draft. He has shot up draft boards. He's just a do-it-all, has done everything that Kentucky needs, and at times can put the team on his back. I think I saw a stat that he ends up outscoring Auburn in the final 11 minutes. Connect had 25 and Auburn only had 21, right? So this is a situation where he is the best player on the floor most games that he plays in, and at times he can take over a game and prove that he's that best player on the floor. However, one thing where Alabama had some success in game one is Connect did not shoot at the level that he is capable of. He ends up only going 1 for 6 from 3. And, he didn't play quite as much as he's played in some other games because Tennessee got up so much early. But this is a situation where Connect has not been as good on the road. One of his worst shooting performances of the year was against Missouri on the road a couple of weeks ago. And, as well, he just has not shot at the same level on the road as he has at home. That's not to say he doesn't have the ability. He absolutely does. And there have been some games on the road that he did really well, namely the Arkansas game. But this is a situation where Dalton Connect has to be your, number one option. What do we do to stop Dalton Connect? In my opinion, some of this is a situation of Dalton Connect is going to get his points, and Dalton Connect himself probably isn't going to be the one to beat you. It's the rest of the guys at Tennessee, right? In that first game, Connect ends up with his points, but what ends up costing Alabama in that first game is Jonas Adu and Gainey end up both having really big games, and that was really what ends up doing Alabama in game one. Is it was not the scoring by Connect, it was really the scoring by all the pieces around him, right? Just having one player that can get their points isn't the issue because Alabama has the ability to score with them. The issue entails when the rest of the team, goes up to that person's level. In my opinion, the player to watch in the game is Jonas Adu for Tennessee. He is somebody that has been on a tear over the last few games. I've got it here in front of me. Over the last 5 games, he has scored 23 against Arkansas, 11 against Vandy, 14 against Missouri, 18 against A&M, and 14 against Auburn. Rebounding numbers of 7, 14, 4, 8, 12. Has multiple blocks in these games. It looks like he had 11 blocks in those 5 games. That was something that hurt Alabama in game one. Adu ends up having 19 points and 4 blocks. He was really the key to the first half of that Alabama game. Alabama really didn't have any way to defend him. He got Grant Nelson in foul trouble early. Grant Nelson only plays 17 minutes and fouls out. A lot of that has to do with how Jonas Adu was playing in the interior. So I think Adu and how Alabama defends Adu has as much to do with this game as Dalton Connect does, because if Alabama has to double down and leave a shooter like we end up having to do in that game one, that ends up causing additional problems, and then Tennessee has the ability to make shots, right? Tennessee makes 10 threes in game one. A lot of that has to do with how we're having to try to defend Adu, and it then leaves open shooters. Gainey ends up having a really good game, and it kind of goes on from there. The other really, really big piece, and probably the most important part of this game, is how well does Alabama hang on to the basketball. Alabama has been much better at home in turnovers and block shots, or not letting opponents block their shots and not giving up turnovers as they have been on the road. This was a massive issue in game one. In game one, Sears has 7 turnovers. Griffin has 6 turnovers. Tennessee creates 15 steals. Tennessee was always outrunning in transition. And Alabama ran into the issue that we were just beating ourselves by how many empty possessions we were giving and how many easy possessions we were giving to Tennessee for them to just run in the flow of their offense, right? We gave up 15 steals on 20. We also gave up 22 full turnovers, and then there were 6 blocks, right? Nate talks about the blocks at the rims or sometimes just as bad as a steal, because that block ends up happening and it gives it to the opposing team, or it gives it to the opposing team, which they can then run out and transition the same as a steal, right? So that was a huge issue in game one. This is something that Alabama has been a little bit better at in Coleman than they have been on the road. It has to be better in this game if Alabama wants to win. 22 turnovers, 15 steals is not something that will win this Tennessee game. I don't care how good your offense is playing, right? This is a situation where it brings your offense to a halt. It gets you out of your flow. It gets you out of transition like Alabama wants to play, and it's just not a recipe for success. The other big part of the game was in game one, Alabama only shoots 4 of 21 from 3. Tennessee did a really, really good job of running Alabama off the three-point line. And on top of that, they did a really good job of not allowing Alabama to just get easy assists. You know, Alabama has the most success when they're assisting on all their baskets, right? You know, I just talked about in that Ole Miss game, Alabama gets 14 assists to 1 turnover from their main 2 guards. Well, in game one against Tennessee, Alabama had just 9 assists. 9 assists for a game is nowhere near the number that Nate Oates is looking for, and that is not the offense moving and flowing at the direction that it wants to be flowing in. Versus Tennessee on the opposite end, because of all the steals, because of the blocks, because of their ability to flow in transition, Tennessee ends up having 21 turnovers. So as much as the turnovers have to do with this game, I think that the assist number has a huge piece to do with this game, because the assist piece is going to tell you how well the offenses are flowing in transition. Is Alabama, being there on the catch? Is Tennessee there on the catch? Are these allowed to be given up open threes? What is the offense to defense looking like? Because at the end of the day, Tennessee is one of the top 3 best defenses in the country. Alabama is currently the number 1 offense in the country, right? So this is a best on best matchup. So when it comes down to that, it's, can Alabama get into the flow in the offense? Can Alabama thrive off the crowd that I'm sure will be electric? Is this a game that Alabama can dictate the pace? Is this a game that Alabama can limit the mental mistakes, limit the turnovers, limit the easy giveaways? Because that's what's going to cause the biggest issues. If Alabama allows themselves and allows Tennessee to get out in transition, to steal the ball, and to just get running and in the flow of their offense, Alabama has shown the inability to be able to defend that at a high clip. We saw the Tennessee game. We saw when Auburn got out in transition on the road. We saw what Tennessee looked like in game one on the road. You saw the first half of that Ole Miss game. This is a situation where Alabama, being in the flow of their offense and being locked in on defense go hand in hand. If Alabama is locked in on defense, it allows them to potentially, get stops, get steals, and get out in transition their own self to get the ball moving and to get the assist numbers that Tennessee did to us when we were in their place. So I think this is going to be a really, really big game. I think that Alabama has a decent chance of winning this game. However, this is going to be the toughest game Alabama's played at home to date. I know the Florida game was tough, but I think that how Tennessee plays defense, how physical they can be, especially depending upon how this game is officiated. The Tennessee games with Alabama officiating often plays a fairly large role because of how physical Tennessee likes to be. If Tennessee has the ability to be as physical as they want to be, that's not in Alabama's best interest. So Alabama has to bring its own physicality. Alabama has to rise up to the challenge, and Alabama has to get ready for what's going to be a very tough game. From tip to buzzer, this is going to be the toughest game that Alabama's played at home to date, one of the toughest games they've played all year. And at the end of the day, this game very well decides the SEC regular season. Because if Alabama can win this game and win out, they win the SEC outright. if Alabama wins this game and loses to Florida, they at least get a chance at a share of the SEC title, right? So if Alabama has aspirations to win the SEC title, it has to start with this game. And this game is an absolute must-win for Alabama if they expect to either A, try to climb the seed line when it comes to March. Currently, they're sitting at a 3 seed. If they want to try to chance at a 2 seed, you got to beat Tennessee. Also, if they want to try to win the SEC outright or have a share of the SEC title, it starts with this game because you're at a huge detriment. Tennessee wins this game, and then you have to go into Gainesville and you have to hope Tennessee drops another game, right? Because at the end of the day, right now, you're neck and neck. If you get the winner, gets the leg up in the SEC championship race. So